U.S. officials say they are closer to a deal to pause fighting in Gaza in exchange for the release of many more hostages held by Hamas. That's as pressure in Israel mounts against the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. On Saturday, Israeli police clashed with protesters during an anti-government rally in Tel Aviv. Protesters called for new elections along with the immediate release of all hostages still held in Gaza. DW correspondent Tanya Kramer is standing by in Jerusalem. Hello, Tanya. Israelis broadly backed their government's handling of the war on Hamas in the first weeks after the October 7th attacks. Now we are seeing massive protests outside the Prime Minister's home. What has changed?
Well, I think it's quite a fast-moving situation, but also a complex picture here. As you said, the country is still very much united behind, a majority of Israelis support the war. They support the armed forces and to a certain extent also their leadership. But the longer this goes on, the more questions are being asked to what are the scenarios for the day after. And one very, very big and very important question here is the issue of the hostages. That's what we are seeing here in the past weeks. There have been every Saturday tens of thousands of people coming out to demand the release, to demand the government a new hostage deal to release the remaining over 136 hostages that are believed to be still in Gaza, to free them. And we have more groups now joining those protests. They're the anti-Netanyahu protesters that have been around, but they haven't been coming out so much. We've seen them. We have some protesters that are protesting against the war. These are smaller protests, but also protesters that are now calling for new elections. And that is also, according to polls, what a majority of Israelis want to see, that after the war ends, there should be new elections.
And yes, it seems like in the face of the growing criticism, Prime Minister Netanyahu has remained defiant. But how long can he afford to stay the course?
Well, I think he seems to be quite unfazed, as you say, by the criticism. He says he wants to achieve the goals that he has set to remove Hamas from power, and also that the war has to continue as long as it takes. But he is under more pressure internationally by his allies, the United States. They want to see a scaling down of the intensity of the war, a more aid, a more protection of the civilian population in Gaza, but domestically as well. There's the issue that he needs to bring those hostages home. That is very much on the public's mind. His popularity has dropped dramatically in polls, and a lot of people have criticized him because he didn't take so far responsibility for the security failures during the terror attacks on October 7th.
You started touching on it a bit, but tell us more about this. There are reports that Israel and Hamas are close to a deal to halt the fighting in return for the release of hostages.
Well, there have been a lot of reports here in the past days, but these are all talks that are happening behind closed doors, so it's very hard to see where they are at the moment. So there are reports now that there's a four-way meeting supposed to take place in France from the heads of the CIA, the Mossad, and the Qatari Egyptian mediators, trying to hammer out a new deal that would be a phased deal where first some of the hostages would be released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli prisons, and also a longer period of a temporary ceasefire. But of course, Hamas has always said that they want to see a full stop of the hostilities and a full withdrawal of the Israeli army from Gaza. So it's still to see how this will play out.
Right. DW correspondent Tanya Kramer, thank you.